webinar. My name is Joan Lee, and I manage partnerships marketing at Indiegogo. I teamed up with Ingram Micro Commerce and Lifecycle Services to help entrepreneurs and smarter. And this is the latest in our free fulfillment webinar series. Before we begin, just a few notes. This webinar is being recorded, and we will send out the replay in an email by tomorrow. If you have difficulty with the audio, try restarting a browser. And finally, we will have a session at the end, so please save your questions for the end, and we will have enough time to answer them. Today, I'm excited to introduce you to Reza Hyatt and Andrew Kessler, whom you can see on screen there. They are our shipping and fulfillment experts from Ingram Micro. They're going to walk you through the basics of determining an international shipping strategy that suits the needs of your products. And with that, I'm very happy to turn it over to Reza and Andrew.
Thanks for this. Thanks for joining the webinar today. Just want to quickly go over kind of what our agenda for this will be today. So we're going to start by going over, the right fulfillment route for your product, and we're going to get in detail on de minimis related to like customs and products with batteries. We'll go over our 3 different type of fulfillment options: local fulfillment, direct shipments, consolidated cross-border, which is something that we specialize in. We're going to go into detail on a free trade zone. Our warehouse in Shenzhen is located in one. And then we'll go over some potential pitfalls when shipping cross-border, and then we'll open everything up for questions.
Thank you, Andrew, and thank you everyone for joining today's webinar. As Andrew mentioned, we're going to cover some of the different routes that are available to you as a campaigner to get your products into the hands of your backers. I think oftentimes what happens is that campaigners think of shipping, especially international shipping, as an afterthought, and we're very fortunate to have this partnership with Indiegogo because it allows us to talk to you guys before maybe get a chance to talk to you before you even launch your campaign, so that the fulfillment piece of it in the forefront of your decision making as far as how you run your campaign. And kind of when it comes to international shipping, some of the things that you need to consider as far as, hey, what countries you make your products available, and when you decide that, for example, if you want to have your product available for people in Europe, what are the things that you need to consider, and the cost that's involved with getting your product shipped internationally. So at a high level, and from my conversations with a lot of campaigners, some of the things that they want to know is that, well, how much should I charge for the shipping piece of it? And really that piece, a lot of things that, perhaps you should even consider when you design your product is the weight of your shipment and the dimensions of your shipment. One point I can kind of talk about here is dimensional weight. And dimensional weight basically is something that carriers use to determine the shipping cost of your product. What dimensional weight is they take the volume of the shipment, volume of the product, length times width times height, and they divide it by a dim divisor. And basically that dim divisor, they look at what the result is, and the higher of the weight or the dimensional weight is the weight that they use for calculating the shipping cost. And why I'm bringing this up here is because you may have some manufacturing and design choices that you can make during your campaign, during the product design stage, that can affect this dimensional weight. So these are some of the things that you need to consider. Also batteries. If you're looking into making a product that has batteries in it, you want to kind of consider the shipping restrictions that are involved when you ship a product with battery. So that's if any of you that are here today have a product that has battery in it, we definitely definitely would want to talk to you to advise you on some of the things that you want to look into. As far as the duties and taxes, one of the other questions that one of the things that you want to make clear with your campaigners is duties and taxes. If you are shipping internationally, typical international shipment, the duties and taxes are paid by your end customer, and the way duties and taxes are calculated is basically customs takes the retail value of the shipment, which is what you declare the retail value of the shipment to be. They add on top of that the shipping cost, and then they take that total cost and they multiply it based by a percentage based on which varies from product to product, and the duties and taxes are calculated that way. And typically, what happens is that if you're shipping cross-border, for example, if you're shipping to Europe, product is say your product is $300, the shipping cost is $50, so the total value is $350. Europe typically has a 20% VAT, so 20% of $350 is $70. Your end customer will get an email or a notification by mail that, hey, your package has arrived. You either have to go online or go to the post office and pay the duties and taxes before the shipment is released to them. And how they're notified, again, it varies from country to country and carrier to carrier. So, one of the things that you want to make sure if you are planning on shipping internationally, that you want to make sure that you're very clear on this. And if you take the time to look at go through Indiegogo website and look at the different campaigns, and if you run into campaigns and you see people that have done a few campaigns in the past, you see that they're very clear about this piece of it. Because what happens is that if you don't clearly outline the duties and taxes to your backers, then what happens is that shipments are made and you're going to have a lot of refusals where people weren't expecting to pay duties and taxes on a shipment, and you're going to get ordered. You're going to have unhappy backers because they weren't expecting this duties and taxes. So that's something that really you want to consider if when you're shipping internationally. And I want to take a step back from that. Also, when you're opening up your campaign and you want to ship internationally, you want to consider limiting how many countries you make your products available to. And I can just, for example, I want to give you an example. Currently, Russia, any cross-border order that goes into Russia goes through an extreme vetting process. And basically, what that means that a package gets into the Russian customs. Meanwhile, we've shipped the package. We provided you with a tracking number. You provided in turn the tracking number to your backer. Tracking number shows that, hey, the shipment is at customs, but then the package gets stuck in customs for weeks, and it could even be months because they inspect every single package. Meanwhile, your backer is reaching out to you saying, hey, I don't know where my package is. There's no movement on the tracking information. And there's a lot of back and forth, and you're spending all your time trying to track down a package where we have no visibility to where it's at either because it's stuck at customs. So there are certain countries that you want to take. You might get a few orders out of the country, but the back end amount of resources they have to spend internally trying to resolve issues with shipping, it might not be worth your efforts to open up your campaign to those markets. And we get, one-on-one, we can discuss these in a little more detail. There are other countries that we've seen a high incidence of package theft or loss. So, you definitely want to kind of be cognizant of how you open up your campaign and what markets you open up your campaign to. As far as local versus consolidated cross-border, local, let's say if you are, does it make sense for you to bring your products into a local market and fulfill directly from that? Like, let's say if you have a lot of campaigners in the U.S., does it make sense to ship, maybe perhaps bring your products into the U.S. and ship directly from the a U.S. location to backers versus shipping directly from China. Obviously, if you have a very expensive product, it's better to ship local versus shipping internationally, just because of the higher risk of loss when orders are shipped internationally. And the reason why there's a high risk of loss is because order changes so many different hands, and there's obviously transit time, there's damage, and so forth. And Joan, if you don't mind, I'm going to address some of these questions as they come because it pertains to what we're talking about right now. As far as the shipping costs, again, the how you calculate shipping costs is again depends on what your plan is. If you're, for example, if you have manufacturing in China and you want to ship from China directly to somebody in Europe, well, you can go on carrier like DHL's website. They have shipping cost calculators where you can put in point of origin, you can put in the destination, you can put in specs on what the package weight and dimensions are, and it can provide you with estimates of what the shipping cost is. So, and you can run different how much it costs to ship from China to Germany versus how much it costs to ship from China to France. So you can run different scenarios to see what those costs are going to be. So that kind of like gives you an idea as far as how to run shipping estimates. Moving on to so that was direct cross-border that we talked about. Oops. As far as when you're shipping internationally, there are every country has its own de minimis, and this applies to duties and taxes. I don't know if you're keeping up with the news, but Canada, for example, just recently raises de minimis. So every country, de minimis means that basically at what threshold does that country apply duties and taxes to the shipments that are coming in internationally cross-border. Here on the screen, we have some of the countries de minimis. For if you're shipping internationally to U.S., U.S. has a very high de minimis, which is actually right now is $800. And basically, what that means that if any international cross-border order that's coming into the U.S., if the value of the shipment is under $800, and that's a combined value, retail cost plus the shipping cost, if it's under $800, then that shipment doesn't get any duties and that taxes applied to it. European countries have a much lower de minimis, so it's safe to say that in most scenarios, if you're shipping internationally to a European country, there's going to be duties and taxes. Now, the duties and taxes, VATs, are country-based, and they are based on your product. So you want to be able, in a good way to figure out what the duties and taxes on your product is going to be is to talk to a customs worker to find out what the harmonized tariff code for your product is going to be. They can make a determination, and based on that determination, they can, you can kind of get an idea. And customs workers should be able to help you get an idea as far as what the duties and taxes are. There is a website called customsdutyfree.com, I believe. I can certainly share that website with the Indiegogo team, and the Indiegogo team can send out the site to you guys. You can basically kind of put in the harmonized tariff code of product category and the retail costs and estimated shipping costs in the different countries, and it can kind of give you a good estimate as far as what duties and taxes are. So that's kind of like some of the things that you want to consider when you're shipping internationally. As far as batteries, if you're shipping internationally, products that are regulated, definitely batteries are product is a product that's regulated. For shipping internationally, products with batteries have some restrictions. So there are certain carriers that flat out do not ship anything that contains batteries. I'll give you an example. Shipping out of China, cross-border, Hong Kong Post is a carrier that we use. It's a great carrier for shipments that are lightweight, 2 kilograms, 4.4 pounds or less. And they have really good pricing. However, they don't ship anything with batteries. Now, when it comes to products with lithium-ion batteries, we have 3 different classifications here listed on the page. The least regulated is lithium-ion batteries that are under 20 watt hour. So the power of the battery is under 20 watt hours, and the batteries installed within the product. That has the least amount of regulations. The next up from there would be batteries that are shipping with the product but not installed inside the product. For example, I had a client of mine that had this camp stabilizer product, and we were shipping out of Europe for them, and the battery was inside the packaging of the product but not installed, and we were running into issue with the carrier that we wanted to use. Refused to ship it because it wasn't installed. So what we did is we ran a project at the facility. We took the batteries, installed the batteries inside the product, and we were able to use that carrier. So again, going back, installed within the product is the best. Now, the most regulated is if you're shipping standalone batteries. That has the most amount of regulations and restrictions on it, and it's on a case-by-case basis. We actually, for every time that we work with a client that has batteries in it, regardless if it's a coin cell battery or if it's a lithium-ion battery, we want to look at the test form, UN 38.3 test form, the material safety data sheet. We want to get an idea as far as what the watt hour of the battery is, how many cells per battery, and then we can either just by looking at that say what the regulations are, or if there are some hard restrictions, we can check with our carrier partners to see if they can advise on if they can ship the product, and if there's any surcharges that they have, any kind of labeling requirements that they have for that particular battery. Going to the different options that we have, Evan?
Yeah, so I'm going to cover the 3 options that are normally available for crowdfunding clients, general e-commerce merchants in general. So option 1 is a local fulfillment process, local retail, B2C fulfillment, delivered duty paid, sales, DDP. So as you can see from the diagram, the large red dot is kind of the manufacturing center there in China, and the line stemming out of it going to distribution hubs in Europe, Australia, the US. So in this scenario, you are manufacturing in China and you are freighting your goods out of it to a warehouse in another country. So some of the requirements for this include the IOR, importer of record. You're going to be the importer of record into these separate countries, meaning that you need to follow all the regulations or safety labeling requirements to store and ship. You're going to need a business entity in all of these countries too. You're definitely going to need a customs broker. But for the most part, once you are set up in each of these countries for shipment, then you have very short lead times to your customers. When they order off your website or off Amazon or whatever, you can hit them in 1 to 3 days, depending on the carrier that you're using. One more point for this is that you will fully pay duties and taxes at the moment that you import. So if you have a container with $1,100 units on it, you're going to be paying duties and taxes on $100,000 worth of product. And moving on to option 2, this is a direct cross-border shipment. So as you can see from the diagram in this one, you are starting at the China warehouse and you are picking and packing and shipping directly to the end customer. So this is B2C fulfillment. We are delivering duties unpaid in this scenario, DAP or DDU. So like, for example, someone in Europe, like Reza was discussing earlier, someone in Europe gets a package that's delivered straight from China. The customer is responsible for paying the duties and taxes in this scenario, retail value plus shipping costs. So this scenario is good for small, light, low value products. I saw someone earlier ask a question about a deck of cards. This would be a great solution for that. If you were producing a deck of cards, it wouldn't cost that much for the end customer to pick up, and it wouldn't cost that much to ship. So in this scenario, we have an importer record due to the fact that our warehouse is located in FTZ. That will get covered in more detail later. Potentially reduced or no D&T payment. You're taking advantage of the Minimis regulation. So when something is very low value, you're getting it into the country and no one's paying duties and taxes on that. Reduced regulatory requirements may apply to personal imports as well. One more point, this is good for products that are not easily damaged, broken during transport. So like, cell phones or other things, high value electronics, you might not want to ship this way if it could be easily broken in transport. So moving on to the final option, option 3. This is a consolidated cross-border. So this one's probably the most complex, but it's got some very good benefits from it. So this is a way that you can do picking and packing within a China warehouse, but you can still deliver DDP, so with the duties paid. It's great for back orders because, in a sense, you guys are letting your customers know that they are going to be receiving their product after a long amount of time, a couple months. So you have the manufacturing and you can account for the ocean freight in this scenario. So this is also great for bulky, heavy, high-value products where shipping directly from China is not an option, or where dimensional weight is going to be so high that it's very expensive to ship out of China. And then you're also, in a sense, managing inventory at one warehouse because it's eventually handed off to a carrier once it hits country of origin. So in this sense, it's similar to option 1. It's kind of a blend between both options. So in option 1, you need to be an import record. You're going to procure freight coming out of the Chinese warehouse. The thing that is different in this scenario is that final mile labeling is occurring within the China warehouse. So if we're utilizing something like FedEx or UPS, let's just take the US for example, the end customer's label is printed out from FedEx at the Chinese warehouse. The product is labeled, placed on a freight container, and as that freight container crosses the ocean or is flown over the ocean, when it reaches the States, it is handed off to the carrier, who then provides the final mile shipment. So in this scenario,
Hey everyone, hang on just a second. Reza and Andrew will be right back. And they're coming back online right now. All right, you're back.
Are we back? All right. So I'm not sure what point I cut off, but to just high-level overview, we're doing final mile labeling in China, and that is being freighted across the ocean and handed off directly to a carrier for final mile delivery. So in this scenario, you will still act as an importer of record. You need to pay the duties on the entire freight shipment. You're still going to need a customs broker. You're still going to need a business entity set up in whatever country that you want to do this for. And this works in more countries than just the United States. You can do it in Europe. You can do it in Australia, Canada. The main thing that you need to do is take into consideration that if you only have like 6 Canada orders or 10 Australia orders, it's not going to make sense, excuse me, to procure freight in all these scenarios, or even set up a business entity at those end destinations, because it will be more expensive to direct ship it from option 2, but it's going to be way less expensive on a per unit cost than procuring freight in each one of these scenarios.
Thanks, Andrew. As far as the facility that we have in China is a FTZ facility. It's a free trade zone facility. Basically, what that means is that goods that products that arrive at this facility are considered still in transit, and that kind of let's say you have a manufacturer and you're getting your products manufactured in South Korea. Well, you can send your products from your South Korea manufacturer to our FTZ facility without having to import the shipments into the U.S. into China. So that's a really good solution for bringing in your products into the facility without having to import it, and then that facility we can do inspections. A lot of times, like for example, what happens is that let's say you want your products are going to China anyhow, but you bring in 1,000 units. We'll find out in the facility that maybe 100 units are damaged. Then you only import the products, the 900 units that are in good condition into China. You pay duties and taxes on the good items versus paying duties and taxes on the entire shipment. So there's a lot of benefits to FTZ. If your manufacturing is in China and you want to use our facility in China, which is the FTZ facility, you would need to export your shipments out of China into our facility. And basically, your manufacturer needs to be an FOB manufacturer where they are listed as the exporter of record, and they can basically send a shipment by the way of cargo to our facility, and they're listed as the exporter of record. So there are a lot of benefits to having FTZ. If you have manufacturers in multiple countries, you can use our FTZ facility to send all the inventory to that one facility without having to import it into China if the manufacturer is outside of China, and we can do the assembly of orders in China and then ship out using one of the 3 methods that Andrew shared with you just now. So hopefully that FTZ piece is clear. Again, the main takeaway is that because a lot of people that are here, they're getting their manufacturing done in China. It's just that if you are going to use our FTZ facility, that you need to work with your manufacturer to make sure they're clear that they need to be the exporter of record, and the shipment is an export into our facility. So obviously there's challenges when shipping cross-border. We talked about duties and taxes. I can't say this enough. If you are going to open up your campaign to international markets, you want to be very clear on duties and taxes, that the duties and taxes are paid by the end customer. There is no way to know, especially if you're opening your campaign up to the entire world. There is no humanly possible way to find out exactly what the duties and taxes are for every single product in every single country. Duties and taxes, as I'm sure you listen to the news with all the trade things that are happening. Duties and taxes are always in a state of flux. It varies from product to product and country to country. So as far as the shipping cost, sometimes one of the things I think Andrew makes a big recommendation on when he's talking to his clients is that if you are going to offer free shipping, then realize that there is a cost for shipping. There is no such thing as free shipping. Somebody has to pay for shipping. Now you either build that shipping cost into your cost of your product and build enough of cushion in there that if you are shipping internationally everywhere, that you have enough cushion in it to cover those costs. Or if you pay more for some countries, some countries you can pay less. but there is no such thing as free shipping. So you either charge your clients or you build it into your cost model. As for regular requirements, again, batteries was one of the things that we talked about. So you definitely want to talk to your customs broker. Like we ran into a scenario where for a client of ours that I think we're showcasing in this webinar today is that, for example, that we're shipping out lids. When they arrived in Germany, German customs put a hold on the shipments because it was a product that was coming in contact with food. So they were. The German customs requested additional documentation because Germany has its own unique regulations when it comes to products that are used in making food or storing food. So those are things that as you open up your campaign to more and more markets internationally, be aware that these are things that can come up, and you need to be able to prepare for yourself for it, and if you can maybe address it on the front end when you're running your campaign, that hey, this is a product that might have some regulations, and it's that you might want to have that documentation available beforehand.
I'm sorry to say, just don't assume all countries are the same.
Yeah.
Either, because like Reza just mentioned, Germany is part of the EU, but the other EU countries didn't have that same regulation that affected the lids that were being shipped. So I think it's much easier if you only need to learn the customs regulations for a handful of countries as opposed to all 230 something countries if you open it up worldwide.
As far as address data accuracy, I mean, it's very important to get the right address, because especially with campaigns running for a year, people move. You want to make sure you get the right address, especially if you're shipping internationally. A carrier is going to make efforts into making the delivery, and then afterwards, if the carrier is not able to reach the customer, the product's going to come back and sit at their hub, and then there's daily costs that you may accrue for storage costs or costs to get the shipment back to the point of origin or redirect to somewhere else. So address data accuracy is very important. As far as shipping internationally, there are lower cost shipping options, but they're not insured. So you want to weigh that, based on the value of your product. If you want to ship with an insured carrier versus an uninsured carrier, what are risks involved? Obviously, if you're shipping a $300, $400 product, you're better off, going with a more expensive carrier. Like somebody like Hong Kong Post, it's not an insurable carrier. They're the cheapest option. They may not be the ideal carrier for shipping internationally when you have an expensive product. As far as returns, there is going to be refusals. There's going to be undeliverables. So that's a standard part, especially when you're shipping in bulk, thousands of orders. There's going to be an influx of returns and refusals and undeliverables. You can reduce the number of refusals by being clear. A refusal is basically, for example, we ship an order, your backer gets an email that hey, you have to pay duties and taxes. If they weren't aware of these duties and taxes, they're going to refuse the package. So you can reduce the amount of refusals that you get by being very clear about the duties and taxes in the upfront. On deliverables, again, like we talked about it, the carrier tries to make a delivery, address is incorrect, or they make few attempts, they're never able to catch the person at home, or other reasons. So again, if the more clear of shipping policy, the more clear you're upfront, the better it is way to reduce your percentage of refusals and undeliverables. As far as returns, meaning a package was delivered, the customer doesn't like it and they want to get it returned. The way we work with our current clients is, especially for crowdfunding campaigns, is that best policy is that to have the return sent back to you, because we look at these projects as a one-time project. So it's better to always have the returns just come back to you, and you can inspect it, and then if you plan on selling ongoing afterwards, you can manage those yourself. As far as is there a percentage of returns and refusals? We're seeing 1 to 5% refusals that are on deliverables. I don't know if that answers your question. So yeah, there is a percentage 1 to 5%. But the more countries, like if you're shipping to countries like Russia, then you're gonna get a lot higher percentage just because of the delays that come there. So again, it depends on how much what countries you're opening yourself up to for shipping internationally. This is a client that Andrew worked very intimately with, actually.
Yeah. So Unilid raised almost $800,000 via crowdfunding and received about 18,000 orders that they needed to ship out. And we didn't talk to them beforehand, so they ship worldwide over 100 different countries. So here are some of the things we did to help them fulfill all 18,000 orders. They went with the direct cross-border shipping method, option 2, the one where we did the pick and pack in China and utilized an inexpensive carrier that was able to deliver straight to a majority of the countries. So what some of the benefits of this was that their manufacturer was nearby in China, so they did not have to freight their product in the United States, so they saved on freight costs. They did not have to get a customs broker to clear. They did not have to set up a business entity in Europe or anywhere else. They were just shipping everything directly from China, which was awesome. We also did they sent in some packaging for us, and we did some tests with their packaging and the packaging that we had on site, which allowed them to utilize the less expensive carrier option for some of their larger shipments too, up to 8 to 10 units going in a package. Some of the larger packages wouldn't have been accepted by the Hong Kong Post carrier that we ended up using. So these are just some of the things we did that probably save you money on shipping, and definitely save them some time and headache, because everyone's first instinct is that you make it in China, you bring it into the States, and then you ship it out. So with over the 100 countries that they need to ship to, they could have gone and found like 6 different providers across the world, had 6 different contracts, had freight going all over the place. But with us, it was able to just utilize that Chinese warehouse and save time and headache. So this is just a reminder that we offer free consultations to crowdfunders. So there should be a link that will be handed out where you can fill out a contact us form, and we get in touch with you. So some of the benefits: you get a one-on-one fulfillment consultation with someone like myself or Reza. Flash funding, consolidated bulk shipments out of Shenzhen. We have negotiated shipping discounts, which is awesome. There is the link for you to fill out. And then we finished about 5 minutes early, but that's great because that just means we have 5 extra minutes for questions.
Yes. Thank you so much, Andrew. Thank you so much, Reza, for that presentation. Just to remind our audience, yes, this webinar has been recorded, and we will be sending it out via link. Check your emails tomorrow for the replay. So yes, a lot of great questions, and we will try to answer as many of them as possible. So a few simple questions first. Reza and Andrew, what are the countries that are more at risk for theft or customs issues?
We've, I think we mentioned Russia. We've had some issues, African countries,
South America.
We've had some issues. So those are the major regions that we've seen issues with. It's not necessarily theft. It's just orders getting stuck in customs, and they may not have an efficient customs. So, orders shipped, it may sit at the customs for weeks, and then that just increases the chances of loss or theft.
No offense if you're from those countries.
Yeah.
Got it. All right. So here's a question that a couple of people answered, and actually I can take this one. Question is, would you recommend to campaigners building shipping costs into the price or charging separately? So I believe Andrew and Reza, you really recommend, as long as you've accurately estimated your shipping cost and built it in either way, your emphasis is really just on the accuracy of that shipping cost, right?
Yeah, I mean, so the recommendation would be to have it to charge for shipping, but also build some cushion in your cost, your retail price of the product, to cover any unexpected things. And unexpected things are going to happen. I can guarantee you this. So if you can build some cushion, if you don't want to discourage your campaigner, your backers, because of a high shipping cost, then you can charge a lower shipping cost and build some of that shipping cost into the retail value of the product.
Yes, exactly. And just to be a little bit more specific, our campaign strategists recommend basically that they note that backers are discouraged by shipping costs if they feel that the shipping costs are expensive compared to what the product is worth. So you wouldn't want to pay $10 in shipping on a $20 perk. So just keep that in mind as you think about pricing of your product and pricing of your shipping costs, and keep in mind, as Reza recommended, to build in a certain cushion for those unexpected costs that inevitably do arise. And if you charge separately, by the way, shipping ideally wouldn't be more than 20% of the price unless your product is extremely heavy, and backers will understand that the shipping costs will be unusually high. So, okay. And next question. Do you have a shipping hub in the EU or only in the US?
So, great question. Currently, the solution that we have put together for crowdfunding campaigns is that we use our Shenzhen facility as a hub that receives all the inventory and all the actual work is done. For Europe, now if you have customers in Europe, then what we can do is we can do our consolidated cross-border solution for Europe. So, and basically, Andrew talked about this. The consolidated option is that we receive everything in China, all the product. We package all the orders in China. But for the European orders, we label it with a local European carrier. And in this case, we're using Post Netherlands as a carrier. So we label it with Post Netherlands carrier label. And then those orders are then set aside. We palletize them. We put it in an ocean container. And the ocean container goes to Netherlands. And then once the shipment is cleared through customs, we truck the shipment from port and deliver it to Post Netherlands for final mile delivery. And what that does, this is a consolidated cross-border solution. It allows us to use local shipping, so reduce shipping costs, but use China, our one hub in China to assemble all the orders. So, but in order to take advantage of this in Europe, is you would have to be able to be set up as an importer of record, because you're importing shipment to the country. So you have to set up a business. There's duties and taxes that you have to pay. So it really this consolidated method only makes sense where you have a high volume of orders in that region, where it justifies for you to set up the business in Europe, and then and all that goes with setting up being set up as an importer of record. The cool thing about it is when you do consolidated cross-border, you're covering duties and taxes. You pay for the duties and taxes. It's not considered an international cross-border order because you're importing the shipment into the country, so you're covering duties and taxes. Your end customers don't have to. I don't know if that's a cool thing because it's an added cost on your end, and it may cause some friction for your customers. Saying some people say, "How come you paid the duties and taxes for these people, but you didn't pay it for us?"
Got it. Well, great. Thank you, Reza, for that detailed answer. And that actually answered a couple questions from people. All right, next up, I have a couple related questions that are really good. So what shipping partner, really shipping carriers, the question, DHL, UPS, et cetera, are usually preferred in an Indiegogo campaign? So you can answer that on the Indiegogo side. We make no recommendation in terms of the shipping carrier. And Reza and Andrew, I believe you can comment on Ingram Micro shipping agnostic, correct?
So, I mean, there's carriers that we use. I don't know if there's a preferred carrier for Indiegogo campaigns. It really, it depends on your product. What your products needs. I mean, for example, if we're shipping directly from China, or lighter weight or under 2 kilograms that don't have any batteries in it, Hong Kong Post is a preferred carrier because they're lower cost. Unless you want to have insured, then you can use somebody like FedEx International. So that's another carrier that we have available, or DHL International. So
batteries, DHL.
Yeah, so it really depends on the products. So it's not like carriers are there's a specific carrier just that's special for Indiegogo campaign. It really depends on the product and what your expectations are. As far as getting bulk discounts, sorry, go ahead.
No, keep going. Actually, you're psychic, Chris. My next question is actually going to be on how can campaigners access certain benefits, and bulk shipping discounts is one of the. Keep going on that.
Yeah, well, yeah. So we do have to, here in the U.S., especially if we're doing this consolidated cross-border solution where we're consolidating the U.S. orders, bringing it. We have some really good negotiated rates with the carriers in the U.S. So that's really where our discounted rates are. We do have some discounted rates for international shipping as well, but really for the U.S. orders, we're such a huge shipper. We have some bulk shipping discounts, and also for we shipping out of China as well. We'd have some bulk shipping discounts as well, and on our end, I mean, we have also the type of clients that we can work with. We're not saying that we're perfect for every client, but as part of this Indiegogo partnership, we're more than happy to consult with you to at least make some recommendations to you, regardless if we work together or not. And that could be part of one of the conversations that we have if we get an opportunity to talk to you one-on-one.
Got it. And just to remind everyone, to answer the question on how can you get a free consultation with Ingram Micro and discuss, your shipping needs. Remember, we'll send out a link in the email, but you can actually go here, this URL right here, enterprise.indiegogo.com/Ingram Micro. There's a consultation form that you can fill out so you can get in touch with Ingram Micro. And all right, and here's a question. I think one person asked, they see, very low shipping charges charged by Indiegogo campaigners, and they're kind of wondering about that. I'm going to translate this question a little bit. Of the campaigners, you work with a lot of entrepreneurs, crowdfunding entrepreneurs. Do you see that what are some of the top challenges that you see from them? Have they accurately estimated their shipping costs? Or, has there been a tendency to price those shipping costs too low? That's really my question for you.
Yeah, I mean, I do I do come across people that didn't charge enough for shipping all the time. I think, and again, your shipping cost has to correlate with what is your shipping strategy, right? Are you planning on shipping directly from China? Then you can easily, if your plan is to ship directly from China, then you can go on a different carrier's website, regardless if you use us or not. You can go on a website of DHL or FedEx and get some shipping estimates based on the dimensions and weight of your product and some sample destinations. So you can get some shipping cost estimates that way. But let's say if you're planning on bringing your products into the U.S. And you want to import your products in the country and ship locally, again, you can use a local FedEx website to get some ideas as far as what the shipping costs will be based on weight and dimensions of your product. But I guess the reason why we're doing this webinar is to keep in mind that number one is that don't open up your campaign to every country. And I'll give you an example. Like, for example, FedEx this year raised their cost of shipping from China to Japan by 90%. So these things do change by 90%, 90. So you need to be aware of these things that might happen. So that's why we're saying build that cushion into your shipping costs. If you're selling a $10 product, then obviously it doesn't make sense for you to ship it directly from China. It obviously doesn't make sense for you to ship it everywhere in the world. So you really need, if you have a low cost product, you really need to look at your end game as far as what your shipping strategy is going to be. Because if you don't charge properly, or if you don't have the right plan in place, it's going to eat into your entire margin. I don't know if that answered your question or not, Joe. But
no, I think that answered the question perfectly. Thank you, Reza. So here's another question actually for Indiegogo. So one question was, is it possible to send emails to backers who are located in countries that have duties and taxes to warn them about the costs? Can this be done automatically in Indiegogo, or would we need to email the backers individually? So I can take this one. Of course, when you're running a campaign, you can simply post an update on your campaign update to notify all of your backers. And then within your update, you would specify, backers in specific countries regarding that. So that would be an ideal way. You can also obviously export your backer emails and all of their, geographic data. And then, you can use your email service provider to email them regarding this issue as well. So moving on, so we've had more than a few questions about shipping, very, very small individual items. Now, we don't have the bandwidth right now to give everyone a custom quote for their product. But Reza and Andrew, you said option 2 is a great option for really small individual items, things like the size of a deck of cards or a comic book.
Right.
Someone has a lithium-ion battery, like extremely tiny lithium-ion battery, which I assume would put it in a different category. So is there anything else that you want to add about option 2, factors to consider when shipping these really small items, in terms of how to get the best shipping price?
Yeah, again, so if they have, for example, if your manufacturer's in the U.S. and you are shipping directly from U.S. to U.S. Internationally from U.S. USPS first class, I think is one of the cheapest international shipping options that are available. If you're going to ship it yourself, that would be a carrier to consider. USPS first class international. DHL has some good options as well if you want to ship it yourself, or if you have a lot of orders, you can work with a local U.S. Because our solution is really more or less designed right now for people that have their manufacturing in China. But if you have a manufacturing done in the U.S. and you want it that are, you can either ship it yourself or work with a third-party company. They can share with you what the shipping costs are. As far as I saw a question earlier regarding if the product was certain dimension, certain weight, what the shipping cost would be from India. Well, I mean, my recommendation, like I said, go find a local carrier there, and I'm sure everybody's got their own website that you can go there and run shipping codes.
Something that hasn't been brought up yet, I think, really in detail on the direct shipping method is to consider the time frame that's going to take to get.
Hang on a second, we just lost them, but we are winding down in terms of our time. So I believe we have time for one more, just very few questions. So hang on. Bring them back. All right. And they're coming
Sorry
back.
about that.
It's all right. I want to just finish up that question. We are running out of time. So if you want to wrap up that question.
Yeah. For sure. When we're talking about the time frame, certain carriers like Hong Kong Post, shipping direct out of China can be anywhere from 6 to 28 days. DHL Express can be 3 to 5 days, but it's more expensive. And then if you're looking at any of your other options that involve freight, you're considering adding an extra 6 to 10 weeks total delivery time because it's got to go to the port, get loaded, travel across the ocean, etc.
Great. All right, so we are just out of time. So thank you so much, Andrew. Thank you, Reza, for being our expert shipping and fulfillment speakers today. We will be sending out the recording of the webinar by email tomorrow. And thank you, everyone, for attending and for all of your great questions. For anything that we were unable to answer, as I mentioned before, please check out our partnership page. Here's the URL. And feel free to request a free consultation with actually Andrew and Reza through that form, and they look forward to speaking with you. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you. A pleasure. Have a great day.